Are you, we've never had this discussion either, are you heavily, and I write for Resource World magazine once in a while, and one of my favorite articles was about Paul McKenzie, and I'm trying to remember what his mine is. Home something. He's up at Buttle Lake. And Homestake, yeah. And he was one of two people who spent any money about 6 years ago in mining. There were two guys that did any exploration that year, because mining was so bad in BC at the end of the NDP government. And I'm going to make a comment. Gordon Campbell, this is for you. You were responsible for 4 years of that, not the NDP. And you know why Gordon Campbell was responsible?
No.
This isn't your statement. This has nothing to do with Dan. This is my statement. Gordon, I hope you're listening, or I'll send you a copy. DeYoung and Collins, Gary Farrell Collins, Gary Collins, and Mike DeYoung and Gordon Campbell, when the Nisga'a Treaty was signed, started a private member's bill against the Nisga'a Treaty.
Oh, I see.
And then he said his election promise was he was going to have this referendum and let all the white guys decide what was going to happen with treaty settlements. And because of that, in my humble opinion, now I got this from, I won't even bother with the companies, but I'd have a vice president of some company like Rio Tinto. I didn't have a vice president of Rio Tinto. I didn't have a vice president of Miranda, but I had a whole bunch of others. And they would they'd come in and they'd tell me they'd had a board meeting and they decided they weren't going to spend any money in BC because Campbell was going to get elected.
Right.
And he was going to destroy all the treaty negotiations. And without treaty negotiations, you can't drill, you can't explore, you can't mine.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, are you heavily into resource stocks by any chance?
No, I'm a portfolio manager as such, so I diversify the investments. And materials has certainly been a great place to invest in over the last 6 or 7 years. I'm a great believer in cycles, and I am in the camp that we are in an upcycle in the commodities in a reinflationary environment. I think that we're,
we've had a bit of a collapse.
Yeah,
and
but
now
that's
sort of
it's not abnormal over a longer secular period. It's interesting, David, if you go back and you study a chart of disinflationary and inflationary periods going back to the mid-1800s, you'll see. And this is pictorially evident. I mean, you can, if you get a chart, we've looked, I've done, I have a degree in as a chartered technician, so I've studied some of this stuff. But you'll see there's 20-year periods of inflationary bias, and you'll see a disinflationary 20 years. And it could be 18, 22, but you'll see,
This is what happens.
You'll see what happens. It's 20 years to get to the top and 20 years the other way. Well, we're about halfway through. Maybe a third to halfway through this cycle of inflation, of reinflation, inflation, call it what you will. It's not abnormal through a cycle such as this over a 20-year period to have one or two bear markets through this secular, still up, but you're going to get whipped around just like all other parts of the market. So the long-winded answer to your very short question is yes, I am interested in the material side. I don't specialize in metals. I mean, we own, whether it's oil and gas assets or whether it's financials, or we'll have a certain proportion of stuff in the metals business. I like it. I mean, in terms
and
of,
understand
and
it.
I understand it. I mean, a great story that I understand the business almost too well. I worked as a bull cook for Midwest Drilling, and I forget the year. 68, and we were just east, I guess west of Thompson, Manitoba, and my dad's company had popped some holes down, and they were what Dad used to call blooper 700-foot EX drills, and they were the small core,
little diamond drills.
So just poking little short holes, about 700 feet down, right? And so we went out there, and I was the guy that lugged the core from the drill sites into the...
You got it in the right order.
In the right order, and labeled it and all this kind of stuff. And I worked a summer, I remember, there, and I came back, and I was away at school, and I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he says, "Damn it, Dan," he says, "we missed it." He says they gave the property up. Inco picked up the property, drilled down 2,000 or 3,000 feet, and found one of the largest nickel deposits in Canada. And we were sitting right on top of it, drilled it,
but didn't get far enough.
And didn't get far enough.
Well,
and so I understand how fickle the metals business can be when you're in the exploration side of things.
Well, I've got clients that are mining roads in Nevada.
Uh-huh.
In other words, the mine tailings and all the rest that was used to do the roads, they're actually tearing up roads and
recycling the tailings?
Recycling the tailings and getting more gold than they could out of some gold mines because the old style refinery couldn't get it all.
Yeah.
And talking about drilling holes like that, Imperial Oil, and so I think it was 1938 in Saudi Arabia, they had drilled 42 dry holes, not discovered. And the order came over, the telex came, or telegram came saying, quit drilling, we're pulling out. Yeah. And the one guy that was in charge of the crew was just not going to do that. So he tore the thing out, pretended it never came, and drilled one more hole. He kept on going, and the 43rd holes where Imperial Oil discovered the oil.
It's just like the Chuck Fipke story. It's that last grab of desperation.
You really never know whether that was going to be the last one or not. But I get a little shivers thinking about this because there's always that people give up too early sometimes. And I met Hunt.
The Hunt brothers of silver fame?
And I met him, Bunky Hunt. I met the father, Bunky's father, in about, give or take, 1972 or 73, and I was driving up from Pemberton, North Dakota, driving an Imperial 57 Imperial convertible, and with a trailer hitch, and I came across a guy with a Cadillac and an Airstream trailer at the side of the road, boiling over.
Oh yeah.
So I stopped, and he could drive the Caddy without it boiling, but he couldn't pull the trailer.
Right.
So I pulled the trailer into Winnipeg for him. And we got to a shop where he got.
And it was Bunky Hunt?
No, it was his father. It was the original Hunt. And he showed me a silver dollar he had with his name on the back of it. That was what he got paid for being an advisor to the U.S. government in the Second World War. That was his key fob, his keychain.
Right. Wow.
And stuff like that. Well, C.D. Howe had one for Canada, too. I remember that. But he told me a story. And that was, he was drilling dry holes down in Texas and had no money left, absolutely no money. But he managed to swing a new Cadillac. And he got his new Cadillac and he headed for New York, driving a brand new Cadillac, showed up in New York looking like he was a success, and raised a whole bunch more money and managed to go down and drill another couple of holes, and that's when he made his fortune. So we all have to grasp at the last straw.
Yeah. Well, that's the materials business. I mean, whether it's exploring for diamonds or gold or whatever, it's a lot of it. As Daddy say, it's a lot of times it's just purely luck.
Well, my mining engineer today was taking off to Saskatchewan to work in the uranium stuff too, and they think they've got some diamonds up around. In Saskatchewan as well. Okay, so let's get back to what we're going to have to put this on the system. There is a phone number if somebody wants to phone and talk to Dan. It's area code 866, number 980-0499. You can phone and talk to Dan, and we haven't any calls for that. We had calls the first show, but we haven't any calls since then. And lots of people watching us in archives. So
I finished off at the University of Saskatchewan.
University of Saskatchewan, but you've got a couple more. You're sort of
I went on to. I started. I wanted to be in the finance side, so I started with a company in 1979 with a company called Pitfield Mackay Ross.
Pitfield Mackay Ross, certainly a big.
An old blue blood name from the 1970s, and I started as a wire room boy in Calgary.
Really.
And it was in those days there was 6 stockbrokers there, and I was the trainee. And I remember there was the senator of this place was a fellow by the name of Judge Walkow. I don't know if he's alive still, but he was a gruff old fellow. Always his 3-piece suit and dressed immaculately. And so I was charged with working in the wire room, and in those days we no computers, of course, so you put orders over the telex.
Yep.
And so I did that for several months to learn the ropes of the brokerage business, and the highlight of my time there was. Judge Walcott came up and he'd get his fills. He'd come up, they'd give brokers, would put their orders into the wire room lady, and she would fill out their fills, what they filled at, and then put them back in the slots. And when Judge Walcott come back one day, and my rating isn't good as the best at times, but He was a gruff old guy, heart of gold. But he came up, and I remember him walking up to the wire room, and he grabs his slip, and he says, "What the heck's wrong with you? One can't read and one can't write." And so I then went on to Toronto for my training program in those days.
With Bishop Guy Ross.
Bishop Guy Ross, and this was